See how he gained access to the...
We have something else in mind.
We're back in the weird and crazy world of Severance, and the latest episode only confirms that the bizarre comedy is back in action and still has a lot to prove. The first two episodes have a lot to unpack. Lies, games, and a lot is at play here. The first episode dealt with our favorite Lumon employees returning after the overtime contingency incident, and how the innies reacted. But the second episode took us into the journey of the outie right after the incident, and gave us a parallel of every event that followed. While everyone had their own stories, Helly had an interesting arc that raised many interesting questions and theories surrounding her. Let's look at some of the possible theories surrounding Helena Eagan, or Helly, and determine whether she's been the real villain in Severance all along. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Why did Helly lie? Fans of the show would remember the events of the second episode of the first season of Severance when we went into the process of hiring Helly. That was the first time we had a chance to go through that entire process, and it became clear that she was just another sheep in the herd with whom Lumon was working. Eventually, she would tag along with the rest and get used to Lumon's working environment. But the biggest twist in the show would be during the overtime contingency incident, in which she participated with her colleagues, only to discover that her outie was Helena Eagan, a member of the Eagan Empire, the family behind Lumon Industries. Even though we know about Adam Scott's character, Mark S., he has a twist when he discovers his wife is alive. Helly's revelation comes as a complete gut punch, but the second season's first episode made a larger revelation that could have hinted at something else entirely. When Mark S. managed to ensure that all his colleagues were brought back after making multiple attempts, Lumon compiled and brought them back. When all the innies reunited, they started discussing what they had experienced about their outies, and each had their own thing to say, but Helly ended up lying about it. She lied that she had landed in the middle of the night at a house while watching TV, and a gardener was outside. It was a poorly executed lie, considering Irving managed to catch it immediately with the concept of a night gardener, but she still got away with it. Now, she might have managed to fool her colleagues, but we're quite clear about the larger narrative she's been lying about. In an interview with Variety, Dan Erickson was asked about this event from the episode and gave an interesting response. He stated, "All of the characters were rattled by what they saw in one way or another, and each of them has to make a decision when they come back as to how much of that they're willing or ready to share." Helly made the most horrifying discovery that she could have made, because she is, as it turns out, what she hates the most. There's a lot of shame that comes with that, and there's a concern that she won't be accepted by her friends. She knows they all vilify the Eagans, and she is one. She doesn't want to have to take on that baggage. That's a valid explanation, considering Helena wouldn't want her friends to discover that her outie was among the people in control. However, her behavior after the lie makes us worry about her true objective in the present situation. At Microdata Refinement. Has Helly's innie actually returned? Throughout the first episode, we see the rest of Mark's colleagues showcase their feelings about the scenario they were put in. We can particularly focus on Irving's scenario, in which he's ready to leave Lumon because of his failed love, but Dylan convinces him to stay. Helly's motivation is to separate the innies' lives from the outies, but when she hears about Mark's situation with his wife, she says she'll help him if he requires it. Many dots connect right then, and it almost feels like this isn't the same Helly we saw in the previous season. Right when Helly entered from the lift, Mark didn't even think about it and jumped to give her a hug, but she behaved as if she was caught off guard by it. Helly made a move and kissed Mark the last time the two had interacted, but this interaction felt quite awkward. When Mark tells her about Gemma, she starts questioning if Gemma is even there anymore, and tries to convince him to stop questioning about his outie. Finally, when they return to work at the Macrodata Refinement Division, Helly finds a switch to her computer. We know these are pretty old CRT monitors, but each one has spent sufficient time in this space to be lost regarding a certain aspect of these computers. The second episode somewhat builds on this idea, as Helena clears up the mess her innie made when giving the disastrous speech against Lumon. Fetid Moppet, a phrase we won't easily forget till the end of the series, is what her father, Lumon CEO James Eagan, says to her right after that speech. It might just be another phrase for him to throw around, but I don't see people using it often. Helena has had quite an interestingly dark relationship with her innie, made very clear by the first season when her innie was trying to quit Lumon, and she was made to watch Helena's statements regarding working there. The statement clearly reprimands her innie, and states that she will never stop working at the severed floor. But the final blow is when she states that she doesn't even consider Helly to be human. Later in the episode, we see Helena watch a tape of her innie sharing a kiss with Mark's innie with much intrigue. Since they seem to have a plan for using Mark, Helena might use this intimacy for the benefit of her plans, and that's why there's a curious look on her face while watching the tape. It's interesting how Helena doesn't think twice about the feelings of her innie, even when she gets to know about the speech that her innie made at the Lumon Gala. This is quite the contrary with Mark, as his statement is something that completely baffles him, and something that makes him think, even though he acts like nothing's wrong in front of other people. Helena Helena completely disregards what her innie stated, and instead decided to take the entire blame for Helly's action, and made it sound as if it was a joke from her part because she was intoxicated due to a mix of the alcohol and the medication for her skin condition. It's understandable why she took the blame for her innie's outburst, because that would play an essential role for the expansion of Lumon itself. The gala was supposed to show that if a member of the Eagan family could take a role in the severed floor, then anyone in the world could take a role here. Even though she did take the blame, it doesn't really change the fact that it will still have an effect on her PR and her position in the company. Helly's statements regarding the torture and the mistreatment only prove the failure that the severed program has faced, and that will become an essential part of Helena's image now. Her father did seem quite infuriated, and that only means that now Helena will require to take more severe steps to fulfill the objectives of the company, whatever it takes. While we can't really blame her considering it was Milchick or Koble who failed at their jobs in ensuring that the innies don't manage to do something that they clearly succeeded at, it's entirely on Helena now to deal with this situation. But the question that really matters is why she managed to allow for Mark's plan to succeed, considering he asked for the return of all his old colleagues. Is it part of her larger plan in getting back on her innie and permanently getting rid of her? Even though it's an ideal route to take for her character, it isn't really clear if she did this or not. Maybe the future episodes will clarify if she managed to go through with this sinister plan or not. Marvelous verdict. There are a lot of interesting parallels in this season and the first season, specifically the offbeat humor that just catches up on you randomly. When Milchick threatens that the innies might be terminated, it's quite similar to the way Mark talks about it during the time Helly had joined the team in season 1. Although I'm quite worried about Koble finally lashing out, it would be interesting to see if she would end up helping out Mark and the others get some more answers. Maybe Bert will give us some answers, considering he's also been keeping track on Irv's life as we saw. If you like our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.